Welcome, everyone, to the Thursday, March 7th, 2024 Helm Developer Call. Let's see, we got the agenda. Has that been shared in the chat yet? Because I came late, I might have missed. I'll drop it in real quick. So there's the agenda. If you've got an item that you want to talk about that's not already listed in here, please go ahead and add it to the list of things, and we will walk through it then. We so far have a pretty light discussion topic and everything, but we'll kick it off with Karen. You've got an announcement.
Ask if any of you are going to KubeCon. We will have a Helm booth. Yeah, that's what it is. In the project pavilion. And if anyone is available to help out, we'd love to have you. I have shared a link to a spreadsheet for the different shifts. We're basically going to be there the first half of each day. So just let this serve as a reminder to sign up for a booth slot. And then once you sign up, I will send you a calendar invite to remind you of your session. If you click in, there's also a map of the project pavilion, and where our booth is circled in red. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks for doing the logistics, Karen. So if anybody's up for work in the booth, let us know. Sign up, let Karen know. I would do it if I were going to be there, but I won't. All right, the next thing up, and for the couple of people who just joined, we'll drop the agenda in again. If you have anything to add to it, please go ahead and we can continue on here. I guess the one other announcement that I'll throw in, next week is patch release Wednesday. So we'll be cutting a patch release before our next meeting. So if you have something that you want to get in, please let me know. All right, then we go into the discussions. George, you've got one.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how we want to approach this one, but way back in 2019, someone made an issue saying that when you do Helm, sorry, I forget the command even, Helm will print out secrets on a dry run. The answer back then was, yeah, Helm was just rendering the templates. If you stick secrets in, you're going to get secrets out. But then lately someone made a CV disclosure referencing this.
Yeah.
So that's the links. What is being done is obvious. I guess what the project wants to do about it probably should be discussed.
Yeah, and so first of all, let's discuss the behavior and everything here. What do we want to do about it? Because this is a vendor, and I'm not sure which vendor put out the CVE. Do you have the original? Oh, there's the original list. Who filed this?
You managed to mute your...
Yes, I did. Well, I talked to somebody else over here real quick. So who was it who filed this? Yeah, you know, and it's things like this and the contentious stuff. If you're not familiar with what the Linux folks did with their CVEs recently, does everybody here heard about what the Linux project did?
I do personally, but maybe not everybody else does.
So the Linux project became their own CNA. And in order to file a CVE against Linux, it has to go through the Linux project now. No vendor or anybody else can do it on behalf of it. But anything that could be considered a security issue, they're preemptively adding a CVE to. In the first 4 days of being a CNA, they filed 200 CVEs. So anything that could possibly be, anything that's a memory problem, things like that, that could have any potential is just getting a CVE now. So I'm trying to figure out. So first of all, is this a CVE? And it's one of the things I saw this a couple of days ago. And I'm debating whether it is a CVE to do this on dry run or not, because it's doing secrets. When you do secrets, it's your resources. And it's one of those things I need to go poke some other security folks on, because this may be something we want to push back on.
Yeah,
So we have to
I
decide.
forget
What
exactly
do you
when
all
the
think?
um it's to me it's an action that the administrator has to take to a large extent to get the bad behavior. So it's not exploitable in by a malicious actor. Um, Logging secrets into a CI system, that's also an action that the administrator has to take for this to be exploitable. So it seems to me that maybe Helm could warn, but
The closest
yeah.
analogy that I can think of is if you run Terraform and you have secrets used in things that are going to end up in your state file, they will be there unencrypted in your state file. And that's why HashiCorp has always said, use some kind of secure access to your state file. Don't just leave it laying around where anybody can get to it. Because if you, for example, use the Vault provider with Terraform to retrieve secrets from Vault, they will be in your state file unencrypted. And so, that's a very similar case to that. And HashiCorp's response to that was always, this is why you should not leave your state file laying around. I don't know whether we could make an analogous thing here of this is a reason why you don't just let arbitrary people look at your CI/CD logs, or don't let arbitrary people look at any logs that are potentially going to have secrets or confidential info or PII or things like that in them. That seems like a best practice that if you're doing it, this is not an issue for you.
As a long-term
Yeah.
long-time
Go
user,
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
a long-time user of Helm, I just think it's silly. I mean, if I've got secrets in there and I'm printing out a template, I'm going to get what's in the template. It just seems obvious.
Yeah, and this is in dry run functionality and dry run in CI. The question would be, what are you using dry run in CI for in order to do this kind of thing? Is it to do some kind of analysis on it? Well, you'd use lint there, right? Dry run gives you the output to be inspected, so that way you can do certain things. So the question is do we, should we push back? What I wanted to do, and Joe, you brought this up well, is to look at what other tools do in the same situation. And I wanted to run it past a few people in the security industry just to see what do they think about this and then go from there. Because I think it's important for us, if we're going to have a stance on this, whether we push back or accept it or whatever we're going to do, we have a good foundation for it, especially if we're going to push back. We need to have talked to security folks. We need to look at other tools and have that footing in order to do it. Right. But I do think in the next couple of weeks, we do need to issue a statement on our stance of it and possibly update the documentation. It'd be nice to be able to do it by next week. We'll see if we can get that done. But that is one of those things. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on that, just real quick. One use case that I've found myself in several projects using it for is in an automated system where we are running a CD, a continuous deployment. If there is a failure as part of figuring out why did things go wrong, we'd run a dry run. We'd drop the entire template there, or at times even perform dry runs, just to ensure that, just to take a look at the output. So the CI/CD pipeline may contain information. So that's like a use case that you'd see. At least I've seen in a couple of places. And
okay, so you have a failed Helm run, and then you go and you do a dry run to generate the full output to see what went wrong, and then log it so you can read it for later.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, and in that case, if you have secret information, you're displaying it to the end user. So, okay,
Correct. Yes.
okay. Yeah.
I read through that issue. Sorry if I broke your chain of thought there.
No,
I
go
read
ahead.
through that issue, and I'm just wondering whether we are opposed to that sanitized flag. One of the users there proposed having like some flag to ensure, be explicit that, you know, don't print anything that is within a secret. I don't know whether that's I'm part of a project called Troubleshoot, which essentially collects manifests from Kubernetes clusters, and we have a concept of redacting, where you can provide various reductors to clean up what you don't want shown.
Yeah, and so the idea of sanitizing, that does make sense. It would be an opt-in.
Yeah,
That
to
is
make-
something that I would be okay with. Yeah.
I was going to say, to formalize Evan's thought, maybe is the way we could phrase that is what we have now works as designed. If people want to be able to safely admit dry run output into CI for debugging purposes, then that would be a feature that we'd need to develop to support that. Would that be a fair summary?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'd need to update. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair summary. I'm guessing not sure whether the dry run was intended for such kind of use cases, but it's what it's ended up being used for. And so yeah, perhaps that's a good summary.
Could we
Yeah.
sanitize by default and then require a flag to unsanitize it, like to actually show
Yeah.
it?
That would be a breaking change. And so it all depends on, do we consider this a CVE or not? And then and that's why I want to look at, is it actually a CVE or not? Or is it intended behavior to show everything and to display it, and then we opt in to add some things? Because if it is something we consider a real CVE, then we can make a breaking change. But if we want to push back and say, no, this is intended behavior, this is what you're going to get with other tools here, like this, that, and the other thing, then we can push back on the CVE and say the tool was not intended for this kind of use, and you need to see all of it. But we can add an opt-in thing to go against it. But you know, it comes down to, is it a CVE or not? And do we want to push back? Because just because somebody says something's a CVE doesn't mean you have to accept and agree with it.
I would say what you just said, Matt, would be a fairly good thing to make as a statement from the project. And then what action we take would depend on that classification and what people think about making a breaking change.
Yeah. Because as a security release, it would just immediately be breaking change, and that will break people in their pipelines and things like that. We'll have the support, but I'm not too much worried about it, because if it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. The question is what is the right behavior here? I think, Joe, as you go ahead, Joe.
I also contend that if you're creating secrets, dumping it into and out of a plain text tool is probably not the best way to do secrets. I mean, if you're going to do secrets, if you want to do secrets correctly, you should be using an external secret tool and using the external secrets operator, and your secrets should be managed there, not in your Helm template.
First, I would agree with that. If you'll notice, a lot of things, like if I look at the Bitnami charts and many others, they don't say go create the secret. What they do is they say, here, supply your external secret as a configuration option, and then you tell your tools to use it. So you can independently manage those secrets. Managing them as part of a chart, yeah, but people do it, right? And
Yeah.
so accounting for people doing it is different.
I think what I'm suggesting is that if we decide it is not a CVE, that would be a documentation update too, is best practice. Don't include plain text secrets in your chart.
Yeah. Okay. So Joe T, because we've got two Joes here today. You pointed out that OpenTofu decided to implement encrypting state. How is that different? Does that mean it does not show up in the unencrypted form when you're doing the commands with it?
What that means is that instead of just writing what's essentially a plain text JSON file that includes everything unencrypted, the state file is encrypted. I believe it's done by means of setting up a GPG key. And so before anything is written to disk, it's encrypted, and then only the encrypted form is written.
Okay. Wait, they use GPG to do that?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if they actually use the GPG utility itself, but I think that's what it comes down to, because that was the long-standing request in the Terraform community was, hey, we need some way to encrypt state files on disk, and HashiCorp's response to that was sort of it was twofold. Number one, it was encrypting state on disk is a really great way to end up in a bad situation if you lose your key. And B, hey, if you need encrypted state and restricted access to state, you should be using Terraform Cloud.
Yeah.
We don't have a Helm cloud.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, I just
Scott.
want to just chime in briefly. Part of the Helm 3 design was to leverage Kubernetes secrets by default for values. Now, there are two things going on here. One is we don't, one of the big differences between HashiCorp's, well, let's just say the open tofu move and Helm's is Helm is for Kubernetes. Kubernetes has a secrets.
Well, this is, but this isn't in the secret storage. This is if you include a secret in your chart.
Right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, just to be really clear about this, that you generally, like, if you're following Kubernetes best practices, you're not using Helm charts to render secrets. And I think that that's an important thing that we need to tell folks. There is, I know that this came up, but there's that Helm secrets plugin that's been used for a really long time that uses SOPs to do encryption. That is really the best.
That won't solve this problem though. That won't solve this problem because on dry run, it's going to put everything out in plain text.
Yeah.
Because the secret's still there and it's still going to be in plain text though.
I agree. I'm just giving an immediate in the meeting. I know there's more discussion to be had, but since this is a dev meeting, my part of the discussion is that I think building an additional encryption mechanism into Helm, or trying to redact all values is, I mean, I could see it happening with, I could see adding a value, a flag to do that with secrets only. But the other thing is all other values besides secrets values, we have no way of knowing what's sensitive and what's not. You know what I mean? You can pass an API key to any values. You can, and people are free to do that with all of their charts. So I would just say that I wouldn't be opposed to a redaction, but I would say, like, I would, just for backwards compatibility, I'd say let's make it a flag. And my immediate gut response is that it does not sound like a CVE. It sounds like ill-considered user practice.
Yeah, and this really comes to if a user just puts a secret as a resource in there, do you sanitize it by just saying we're not going to render that secret to the output? That's ultimately all that you can do. Anything else would be, poor user practices of putting something into plain text. You don't have a nice way to detect that.
Exactly.
And so
I would say just not by, I would say, like, we should put that, if we want to add that, it doesn't sound bad, but we should put it behind a flag and not have that as default, because as you said, some people may be depending on that, and they do secure their dry run output,
and so ultimately this has to do with places it could be stored and things like that, and then not doing it. So really we need to look into, what do other tools do? Is this a real vulnerability? And if it's a real vulnerability, then we'll deal with it. But I think looking, and I need to go talk to some, sometimes I can just spot it. And this is one of those where I think I need to go talk to some security professionals on it first in order to get a better handle on the situation. And that's ultimately my next step. I'm going to go talk to a few of them and get feedback.
Agree. I'm just being clear.
And if
that's
anybody else
my
wants to
comment.
go do it, like you have some
Yeah.
security people where you work, things like that, or that please feel free to do so and then reach out to me with what you find. But I'm going to go find some time in the next few days to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna I'll ask my
Do
team.
we need to try and draft a statement and put in a Google Doc that we can, like a short-term statement that we can put on a message list or something as a way to help?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go ahead and do that, we could do something like that. At the moment, we're looking at it, don't really have a statement.
Okay.
I mean, that's where it's at. We're evaluating it, and we need to evaluate it just like with any of them. Like not long ago, I got a CVE report into the mailing list. It's not really a CVE. It was something entirely different, would not flag it as a CVE. And so it really depends on the thing. Somebody came up with a situation that doesn't even chart. I haven't responded yet, but if you go to curl or wget or some of the other tools out there that do similar operations, they all do the same thing. Actually, they do worse damage. And so it's just one of those things where it's not really a CVE, it's behavior that's common out there. And so people are poking the edges of Helm, looking for everything, and we're getting into some of the more debatable things. And so security is hard. All right, so we're near the end, and I did not do a good job of moderating for other topics. In fact, I lost my document. So, discussion. There was a couple of other things. Lucas, you had a pull request you probably wanted us to review, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not a code developer on daily basis, so I'm not sure about code quality. But the problem it solves is that when multiple releases are happening simultaneously in CI, in my particular case, it's Argo CD, the local repository YAML file is getting overridden by different deployments, and basically that means a lot of failures. Eventually it comes all green because one by one those do happen to deploy correctly, but it's making it super long. And based on what I saw in the Argo CD GitHub, this is the problem that many people before also had. So yeah, first of all, I'd like you to ask to the code review and maybe some hints if this requires some additional testing, some additional comments, whatever is needed there, so we can move this one forward.
Yep. As soon as you said this, I know the exact problem. I've written code to solve it in the past. So I understand. I will put it on my list of things to review.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I lost it. Scott, you had something? You're muted, Scott.
Unmuting would help. Yeah, it's real short and it's just for maintainers. It's a reminder for everyone on the call who's a maintainer to take a look at the private Helm maintainers list. There's one of the things is a lazy consensus vote, so not required. Another is a required vote. So just bringing it up again.
Okay.
Somehow I'm not on the list anymore.
You're not on the mail.
Yeah, I don't know when I got it, but
I
That's
don't
right.
know either.
There were a few things
It
around this. Org maintainer should also all be mailing list admins, and I know I'm not. So we do have a little bit of finagling to do.
Both of you send me DMs and I'll go fix some of that. All right, let's talk next week. Moderator, notes, and such. Who's up for what?
I'll be in Europe.
Oh, wait.
No, I'll be in Europe. I've got I've got a week ahead of KubeCon doing visits for other offices. So
Okay. Okay. That's I thought I had my weeks wrong. So
sorry, cause panic.
do I have my weeks wrong? Okay, moderator notes. Who's around? Who's interested in doing what?
I can do moderator.
All right. Awesome, Scott.
Oh,
Notes.
the notes.
Thank you. Issue triage, PR review.
I will help with PR review as well.
Great.
I can do some issue triage.
Thank you.
Real quick,
right.
are you gonna just cancel the one during the week of KubeCon, right?
Yeah, let's cancel the
Okay.
one during KubeCon.
All right, the one on the 21st. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep.
Or
Awesome.
meeting.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I was just making a joke. Or meet in person.
Oh yeah, there you go. We can do that for sure.
All right.
All right. Well, everyone,
Thank you.
thank you all for coming, and we'll see you all online.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.